Alright, I have to address this now before anyone comments on this video wondering. This is a Dreamcast podcast now. We only cover Dreamcast games. I don't really know why we would have a podcast called Beach Shen and give a fuck about any PS2 games or GameCube games or Xbox games, God forbid. It's all
Fuck you.
Dreamcast games. No, 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 no. All our best stuff so far has been Dreamcast, if we're being honest. We got lots of Dreamcasts lined up because that's where all the good games are. There's no objections to this, right? I'm enshrining
I
this
As long
into
as you
the
can't.
get the
law now.
Western Dreamcast games, I'm good with it.
That's
Yeah,
true.
like Quake 3, my favorite Western
Yeah,
Dreamcast
Quake
game.
3. That is true.
Hot Pocket gritting his teeth, because he gets
Yeah.
a Quake 3 episode, but it's all of us playing on DC Net.
Yeah, it's all it's everyone playing on DC Net. It runs at like 20 FPS or whatever. I don't know. I've never tried the Dreamcast port, so who knows?
The slower speed makes it more strategic. The input delay makes it more strategic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But we have a particularly good Dreamcast game that's thankfully a Japanese game, because we wouldn't want to be covering one of those Western games if we didn't have to. The game is Cosmic Smash. All right. All of us, I think, sort of got into Cosmic Smash a few different ways. It's, I think, becoming a little more known as a fun, easy to pick up, obscure Dreamcast game. So I just want to go around real quick. How did y'all first discover Cosmic Smash? Anyone?
I think it's sort of a bit of a grapevine moment. Paying it offhandedly mentioned it to me when I was in the early budding months of my massive Dreamcast arc, debatably still ongoing. And from there, I sort of made a deal with Hot Pocket. We would trade games around, so that's how I got him into it. Heather,
We did like a
I don't
few of
remember.
those. I
That is
think
true.
we did a good amount actually. Now that I think about it.
What was the
But yeah,
game
that's
that
how I played it.
what was the game that you traded for Cosmic Smash?
I don't think it was a specific. I think Ryan played Slay the Spire and
Fire.
Sheeran. I think that, and then I played Crazy Taxi and Cosmic Smash and maybe something else. I can't remember.
So Ron played two good games and you played Cosmic Smash?
Well,
Interesting.
we're getting ahead of ourselves there.
No, I jest. Heather, you're newer to this, right? Had you ever been
Yeah.
exposed to Cosmic Smash before or played it? Or...
I had never even heard of it until you and Ryan mentioned it. I don't know, maybe a year or two ago, and I was immediately sort of interested because it was so new to me, but also around the same time I had been a little bit more interested in like sort of breakout style games and like Arkanoid and all that stuff. Um, and this is very much like a 3D expansion of that concept. So it was like right up my alley. Though I really struggled at first with it, and I didn't really pick it up seriously until we decided to do this podcast. So I'm very inexperienced with this game, but I still love it.
Yeah, it's funny the constant refrain you hear. I think Ryan, correct me on this. Is it in the manual that they mentioned that the squash meets breakout thing? There
No,
must.
so
Oh, go
uh,
ahead.
I just pulled it up because I had to remember myself. The manual has a different tagline at the bottom of every page. A return to
Yes.
the essence of gaming produces the perfect blend of skill and strategy.
So
Fuck
good.
yes,
So
so
good.
fucking true, so good.
I don't know where the copy first came from that this is Squash Meets Breakout. It is Squash Meets Breakout. It's very hard to get around that fact. Now there's thankfully a lot more about it. I let me just quickly in the spirit of all the Sega games we've covered on this podcast go over exactly where it came from. So this game is from 2000. It's sort of like right around the middle of the Dreamcast life, and then released, I think, after the Dreamcast was confirmed to be on its way out the door. So in that, like, I want to say June or July, like that summer time span. And it was a very like late release. Oddly enough, has like a DVD case instead of a CD jewel case. For its release, Japan only, very bare bones arcade port. Um, what's interesting about it, it's from a team called Sega Rosso. There's only really a few people who worked on it. Like maybe it's maybe around 5 people. And they were sort of from various parts of Sega Rosso. Sega Rosso itself, if I recall, basically split off from AM3. It's some of the people who had worked on their racing games. So most people know like Sega Rally 2 was sort of like the transition game that a lot of these Sega Rosa people came off of and went on to work on Initial D. So Initial D, especially in those early games, sort of feels like a like similar sort of riff on like the Sega Rally like handling and that kind of thing. There are a couple other games they did. I believe they did one of the Star Wars racers. They did the NASCAR game. They of course did the first couple Initial Ds before that studio sort of switched over. I think a lot of people stayed on, but the whole Sega internal studios concept sort of died off. But this game was sort of just came out in the middle of that, and I find it very interesting for that reason. I feel like it's one of the like maybe most emblematic games of that period in terms of just like, oh, we can just drop a crazy random arcade game. But I think this game does have some very easy hooks for where the mechanics come from and like understanding it. Obviously, even beyond Squash Meets Breakout. So, Ryan, would you be able to give us sort of an overview of what the premise is, what the basic gameplay is, that sort of thing?
Right. So, well, we'll say it again for the X time. Squash meets Breakout. You play
Yep.
as Mr. Cosmic Smash Man, and you hit a ball throughout a variety of different sort of neon, very sleek, like Y2K-esque rooms or buses, as they're called, to clear blocks within the time limit. And that's about as basic as I can say it. But there's some important key additions. The biggest one is the Trick Smash system. You are able to do stylish charged moves, so to speak. And the main value is that they will pierce through several blocks. Normally, in most cases, blocks will bounce the ball back at you. But these trick shots will speed up the process at the cost of time. So there's a very important trade-off you're making every single time. But apart from the literal use, and one of the big key facets of this game that everybody will remember the presentation embodied here is finishing a level with a trick shot will lead into a very clean replay of the play. Very cathartic every time. And from there, you just go stage by stage. The first couple are always the same. They're always predetermined, and then after what we'll call the filter stage, we might discuss
Yep.
later.
Yep.
From there, you get this whole map opened up to you, and you can basically create your own path. There's always a level to pick, and they're marked with difficulty as well, so you can have a comfortable couple of runs, staying in the easier lower right section of the map, and from there you can sort of spread out. And that's about it.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Especially on the like the visual design point, I think that's going to stick out to most people who see this game for the first time. I know just seeing the cover image, I'm not sure where I first saw it, but I think it was on, some ROM site. And it's like you said, Cosmic Smash Man, and he's just like this sort of toned, muscular, completely white guy. He looks like if Pepsi Man was made out of like ice cream, right? Uh, he he just he looks very sleek. He's in these sleek sort of millennium style subway tunnels that sort of shift and sometimes have like glowing panels, or might be in the dark, or might be sort of in the light as if you were in sort of like a training lab area. It's very very distinct style, especially with, as you mentioned, the time limit. is so key to this game, and is sort of the meter you're managing, so to speak, for your power shots. It's sitting in this like isometric is not quite the right word, but it's skewed. It's like a skewed perspective set of polygons at your feet basically, and it just you see it instantly. It's not it's strange because it's not diegetic, but it feels like it just fits so naturally in the environment, which is such a strange it's a very like unique balance to hit with the HUD. It's just something I particularly love about it. So Heather, I wanted to ask you, since you're sort of the newest to this game and playing this game, just from a very fresh perspective, just like coming to this game for the first time and feeling it and getting a sense for how it moves, just what popped out to you on your first couple plays?
Um, I would say I think again to talk about the presentation, just how sleek it is, but also the perspective of it, because it is like that behind the back. It could potentially be very disorienting and like hard to um, just hard to understand where anything is in relation to you. And I think just like how everything is sort of translucent and just very clean. It's so readable. It's so much more readable than it could have been. Um, it's also just like ridiculously hard. The I had so many runs early on that just did not make it out of the first like 8 stages. Um, it's again because I was sort of coming at it from like a little bit of experience in like Arkanoid and stuff like that. Just get like the big difference is just like the the player control. Basically, you're actually a guy, with a tennis racket, and you can jump off the walls and all that stuff, and just getting a handle on the control it's so much more complex than Breakout. And obviously, there's the 3D element where you can bounce the ball off of the ceilings, the floors, the back walls, all that stuff. Um, it was just really a lot to take in, and it took a while to get a handle on um, just how to actually control the ball effectively. Though once I started to get a hold of it, I was sort of surprised by how quickly I improved, and just sitting down with the game for a few sessions this week. I was able to get a few of the different routes cleared. I got the goalie fight.
Nice,
So
nice.
it's uh, just sort of just very impressed just with how elegant it is. Like I really really loved the just the timer setup as like this like the single resource that you are managing. Everything revolves around that timer. I think it's so incredibly elegant. Just like all the minimalism of the game, and even just the fact that this is basically in essence an expanded version of a game from the 1970s. Like it really is just the fundamentals of game design. Um, uh, just more of it, and it's just such an elegant game. I was very impressed with it.
I wanted to sort of dig into that final point you made there, because I think you've had the most recent experience with some of the breakout likes, the Arkanoid likes.
Hmm.
I was playing
Hmm.
a little bit of Alleyway recently.
Uh,
So what would you, if you had to like quickly compare contrast, is like what is the different feeling you get from this game, and either in terms of like obviously the physics, but also like the level design, what it's asking from you compared to something like Arkanoid or Breakout?
I'm the big thing is I would say power ups. Like Arkanoid, in my experience, is that game has so many power ups, and like you break all these blocks in the level, and you get like 5 or 6 power ups dropping, and they all do different things. Cosmic Smash like has those power ups. A lot of them are like directly brought over from Arkanoid, where you have like the multi ball power up. There's a power up that will pierce through walls or pierce through the blocks, but it uses them so much more sparingly. Like they're really not in a lot of the levels, just because that focus is away from the power ups and more towards like the complexity of your character movement, the complexity of like the different shot angles you can get in like a traditional breakout style game. Um, just because the control is literally just the paddle control. It's so simple. The only way you can really maneuver the ball is just by like subtly manipulating like what part of the paddle you hit the ball with, and that'll affect the angle. Whereas Cosmic Smash, you obviously have like all these directional inputs. You have the curve balls, the trick smash, all that stuff. I feel like a lot of the skill just doesn't even translate, honestly.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Just the way that ask so much of you in terms of being able to interface with the ball effectively, which is just almost never a question and breakout. There's always sort of that like okay, there's sort of angles you can like sort of skid the ball off of your paddle in those games, but in this it's both very contextual, right? I would say, and Ryan, I know you share this opinion. It shares a lot of DNA with Virtua Tennis, the Power Smash series, where it's got both this very deep engagement system, but it's also not very like the input complexity is pretty low. Like it's more or less like how you move towards the ball, what kind of duration you're using when you like are attempting to hit the ball, what duration of the buttons are you pressing, that kind of thing. um Ryan, would you like to sort of expand on that and maybe the physics as a whole, how this game feels to play and what sort of the some of the more complex features of it are?
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting things that we all sort of discovered as we were playing, I guess this is technically similar to Virtua Tennis. So these are both ports from the Naomi. These are arcade games played on arcade sticks with digital input. It may not seem that way at first if you're just coming to the straight playing the console versions, but these are digital games. Analog movement doesn't really exist in the way you think it would. It's just that there is a granularity to using the same shot and sending it at different angles, but it's I want to say it's almost like the duration you hold a direction like builds up per frame, and that's sort of the basis of how you can build up speed, or sorry, build up like angle strength. Um, but that does play into different animations that you can use. Essentially, the way uh, it works in these games is regardless of the distance between you and the ball, with extreme exceptions, like if the ball's in the air, you can press the smash button, and there is a contextual animation that will account for the distance and the approach of the ball that will allow your character to hit it. And one of the notable cases in both games is if the ball is far enough away to the side, you will get a very satisfying like roll attempt to recover it. And it should be noted in this game, in Cosmic Smash, dropping the ball as if it flies past you is not in and of itself a punishment. You just spawn another one right in your hands, and you can essentially pick up where you left off. There's no time penalty to speak of.
It's
Yeah,
definitely like it's a lot of the things in this game I would say have a very like organic time penalties, right? It's more like
yes,
if you play inefficiently, then you will eventually run out of time. And I think sort of like what Heather was saying, that my first few hours of this game it was very difficult, right? And a lot of it was just getting those bad habits out and making my shots more efficiently, but also just making sure I hit the rally, I'm close to the panels I want to be hitting, that kind of thing. Um, I think something else interesting with this game, and I'm curious to hear you sort of touch on this a little bit, is the way that the walls interface with the game, and jumping in general, because instead of it being sort of like a 2D plane, there's sort of a 2D plane that you can hit it on, but of course the game is in 3D, right? So you're sort of operating on this, like left, right, up and down. To actually access the vertical aspect of it, you need to jump, or you need to jump on the wall and sort of do a little wall kick, which makes the walls in this, it gives them like walls in many classic arcade games, sort of a different timbre, right? When you're engaging with them. So I know there's at least a lot of different like interesting tricks and that kind of thing you can do off the walls. So like when you play this game, how do you feel like the walls sort of expand the general breakout framework?
I think the key thing, especially with the fact that it is 3D in the sense that there is height involved. Um, I think we'll get into this a bit later. As you sort of get better at the game and you pursue score, it is possible to have some levels that will feel solved in a sense. So you just instantly know,
Yeah.
if I do X amount of inputs, I will clear it as fast as possible. But there's a good chunk of levels that really push the system with like moving blocks. Like there are levels where the blocks can like interact with the depth a little bit more. Some undulate to and fro. I was playing a level on the right side of the map, refreshing on where there's actually like a wall of the solid, or not, like the translucent gray, like the fake walls, basically, where it's just placed halfway in between you and the max distance. So the play field is essentially cut in half. So you have sometimes that level design will like play with the space you can interact with, but even just in general, I think just the fact that there are so many ways that the ball can interact uh, within the room means that uh, there's a good chunk of time playing this game where you're still like learning how to rope with the ball and sort of react to where you send it. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like I feel like the most unique aspect of it, and one that's sort of hard to capture because it is so it's in that weird realm of automation, right? For aspects of it that make it very hard to describe uh, very granularly because it feels like uh, it feels very intuitive and at the same time it feels sort of hard to grasp sometimes like what exactly is happening, but luckily there are a couple, I think, as Heather mentioned, like those curve shot inputs at least give you some control over like, okay, I want to do this particular kind of um, angle for my shot. I want to make sure it cuts through blocks. I find it to be is that move in particular is sort of like once you have sort of an understanding of the game, it sort of cuts through a lot of the levels like a butter knife, right? It just being able to cut through blocks at once, all at once, and in a sort of like wide arc without necessarily needing to lean on the power smash itself or the trick shot rather, is very it's a little bit on and off in terms of like, oh, I understand this game now, I'm sort of breaking it in half versus, oh my god, it's just like sitting on top of me at the moment, right? Did Hot Pocket, I know, have you sort of, I think, got a feel for the controls, right?
Yeah,
Did you sort of
I
like
was
hit
at
that
like
point
a
of understanding? Do you feel?
yeah. I mean, I sort of got like I was like I can sort of see where this is going type deal.
Yeah,
To me, I mean, it's a very sort of classic arcade archetype of memorizer in that sense of like you kind of, you have the initial phase of like, okay, what the fuck am I doing? And you're like trying to get the controls, and then it kind of evolves into a strong, like, I guess memorizer element is what I would say, where it's like for a lot of the levels, the way they're structured is like there's very clearly like there is a specific thing you will do and that will like clear all the blocks, or maybe there's like you do one or two specific moves and then it's like because of the with the trick smash and the power shot or whatever you want to call it, that curve shot you mentioned
yeah.
earlier, the piercing property, it means that like if you are in certain spots, then a lot of the times you can clear the entire level in one shot. And it sort of makes sense in the sense of like because then there's a routing element for the scoring system, which probably Ryan will talk about
whatever, where you're like, okay, well, what's the best trick shot to use here? Given that I have, I have to try to, you're trying to basically use different trick shots on every level to clear it. I think for me it's sort of weird because I think there are a couple levels like randomly scattered in that are not like that, and they're a lot more dynamic, and I think those were generally my favorite. Where there's just kind of either a lot of blocks or they're moving a lot, and you kind of have to. You can't be spamming the trick shot necessarily because then it eats the time a lot, or at least in my experience. So then you're kind of having to interface more with the basic controls of the game, just on a fundamental level. Uh, and yeah, I mean, it's sort of to me, this is not really a game necessarily I would want to like dump a lot of time into because I feel like it does fall into that memorizer archetype of arcade game, which I'm not. I'm not usually like a huge fan of that type of thing. But also it's like it sort of makes sense. I don't know. Also, I sort of understand why they did it because it's like it's just sort of fundamentally fun to like hit the ball, and then it's a basic little skill curve that sort of follows naturally to like, oh, I'll use my trick shot here, and then uh, I think if you wanted to go maximum depth, maybe you would have made some of the levels a little more dynamic, a little more platforms and more movement in the platforms where you can't necessarily get exact spots that clear everything. But I think for the most part it's fine. And I think there's something to be said for something where you can kind of play it for a while and then be like, oh yeah, I understand this game, and then you can just move on.
Yeah, and there's a note that Reyn made about this being very Monkey Ball esque levels, which sort of gave me that moment of pause because Monkey Ball is one of my favorites ever, right? And I would agree that this has a very like Monkey Ball esque level design philosophy. It sort of, for one, leans a lot on taking an abstract idea that may not be related to breakout or whatever, and we're gonna build something. I think the one that always sticks out for me is Megane glasses, right? There's sort of like this these two eyes, which are like I think yellow blocks or red blocks. One of the ones you can hit through, and then sort of these swirling like gray wall blocks that are in this sort of like circle pattern on each sort of like glasses, right? So you have to wait for the cycle to go out of the way so you can actually hit them, right? Which gives it like a lot of character, but then at the same time there is sort of a it's very easy to like flip the switch and solve it, right? Once at least.
Yeah, and when they manage to subvert it pretty easily. That's sort of one of the little weird things about it. They can subvert it pretty easily when they just use the like the white blocks that you can't
Yes.
break that are like bounce them out.
Or you just hit them and it bounces off or whatever. Uh, when they use those, usually it means you can't do like the I clear everything in one shot type maneuvers. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. It's pretty inconsistent because yeah, they definitely have that monkey ball type thing of like this is the funny idea,
Yeah.
and then they just kind of do a thing, and then it's like, oh yeah, that was kind of funny.
On the opposite end, you get coincidentally it's a level right after Megane.
Yeah.
The name is escaping me, but it's essentially it is a single block behind like a wall of like clear, but there's like a single opening. So you hit the opening and it's solved. There's another one in the route that I mainly play. It's a similar setup, but it's like this like passageway made up of junk. But it's a similar sort of situation. You don't even have to do a trick shot necessarily, but it is possible to sort of let the ball do a lot of the work on those. So, in a sense, those are sort of like duds, right? There for, I guess, humor in a sense. But generally, yeah, the harder you push like the levels you pick, there are more opportunities for these sorts of blocks to get in your way. There's one it's like all of the blocks are coming up from the ground, but it's like the sort of rhythm of
Yes.
yellow and junk and yellow and junk.
Like little
In those
fences,
sorts
right, on the
of
left and right. Am I remembering this stuff
yeah,
correctly? Yeah.
and those sorts of levels are really nice because you know, eventually at some point, unless you're like really locked in, you will eventually have to improvise a lot and sort of be able to
Yeah.
intuit the cycle timing.
And there's the route system also, which sort of adds some variety. I mean, maybe if you're like the top level player, you're maybe like picking one route and grinding it. But like, for most of us, it's like you can play the different routes, and if you get really bored of one or whatever.
It's a very
Even
strange.
to
Go ahead, Ron.
just even to the game's credit, I will send a picture for you to put up here.
Yes.
Not all routes are created equal for scoring in terms of level count, but even if you do want to pick like I think it's like not nine like stages you can pick, there's a good chunk of options you can sort of work with there.
It's a
Not that I'm not tapped into all of them to know what the
yeah.
most lucrative one is, but I know the one I stick with most of the time.
It's an interesting system because it like in the monkey ball sort of formula, it's completely linear, right? And there's some skipping around, but it's not necessarily like you sort of like know the skip, you just skip those levels, right? Here it's I think as mentioned prior, you have these 8 levels that are sort of the tutorial in a sense. And there's some good room for optimization in this tutorial, but it sort of gently introduces like, okay, here's what the main blocks look like. Okay, here's your first level where it's more than one wave of blocks, and we're gonna mess with some like how far into the depth of the play field the blocks are. Here's different kinds of blocks. Here's blocks that move. Here's what the shiny multi-ball block that when you break it open just sends balls flying everywhere. And then Heather, since I know you probably got walled by this many times, do you want to describe Nami, the 8th level? That's sort of the major wall
It's
level.
it's just kind of a fucking clusterfuck where there's just a trillion uh blocks at the very end of the level. They're all like stacked on top of each other, and all the gray blocks that are um moving sort of arrhythmically in different directions, and it's such a at first it's so hard to get a handle on um just what is the expected strategy even supposed to be. And there were so many runs early on where I swear to God I would enter the level with like 120 seconds on the clock and just game over, or
Yeah.
just something similar. And it was so brutal really until I got a hold of the curveballs. You can really like there's really pretty small gaps on the left and right sides of the stage, and if you hook a curveball in there, the ball tends to like hang out and just very quickly um, break through a lot of those blocks. And I also wanted to mention just I really loved just kind of the physics of it, and like how if like a block is right in front of another one, there's still a bit of a gap in between them. So there were weird interactions I noticed, or at least I feel like I noticed, where I would hit a curveball and then it would sort of like swing in between that gap and hit the back ball, or hit the back wall and then bounce forward in the front one. So I would hit clear out 2 blocks and basically just a single instant, and it felt so cool. um uh so at that level in particular is such a run killer early on until you get a hang of the curveballs, I feel.
It's especially cathartic. I'll one up you. It's even better. The gap between the furthest blocks on the wall is enough where you could just like hit a normal shot and sneak it through, and it's really nice because you basically hit the ball at this angle where it's like cascading through the back wall, clearing out everything. And you hear it as well. The panning in this game is really, really nice for a lot of these like really dense levels. You always have a good track of where the ball is based on the sounds. One one of the nice things I didn't mention earlier is the ball is like just like little red orb, and it has like this glowing hue, so you can actually track the depth within rooms as the hue sort of interacts with the walls and everything. It's a really nice touch.
It's
Yeah,
really.
I like how.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I also liked how a lot of times or not I couldn't really figure out why, but sometimes and not other times if there's blocks like on the very top of the ceiling, they'll have like a little shadow sometimes, so you can get a sense of like, okay, here's how many blocks are in this column, here's how many blocks are in this column, and you know where to focus on. You can actually get a better sense of it. I thought there's interesting little visual touches that just help the game be more readable.
It's I think a really great level to sort of pull you up, because unless you have an extremely specific route in place, it is going to be one of those very dynamic levels where there's just so many. Not necessarily like it could be, as far as I know, the whole thing is on rails, like it's deterministic in terms of the movement, but it's not something you're going to be able to grok just by looking at it once or twice. And it's going to be like, okay, I'm finding myself in this situation that I've never quite been in before. How do I sort of squeeze myself out of this? And it still catches me. I had one run that I didn't lose to that stage, but I lost enough time that I was like not gonna make it, much further on. I came out with like maybe like 30 seconds or something, right? So it is really, I think, a great little wall in that way. And then
Mhm.
once you get past that, it's one of the strangest, I think, like stage maps I've ever seen in a game. It is very much supposed to be a subway, a metro. So it has perhaps a naturalistic sort of metro map, to put it kindly.
Vibes-based map.
It is very much a vibe space map. Is there like any cohesion to the routes to speak of, just off the top of your head?
Not necessarily. The most I could say to categorize this is like bottom right easy, bottom left normal, and then as you go up, um those get into the harder levels. Like for reference, we'll have the map on screen. um I'm looking at the manual version right now, and they just like numbered all the stages their own thing, so it's the manual does not help this make any more sense, but it is color coded, which is very cute. And there are opportunities. Say if you verge left on the map a little bit, you can go back to right if you want to.
Yeah.
They're like very specific points, but they do exist. But again, it's sort of just like you just pick. You see easy or normal, you just pick. You see normal or hard, you just pick. It's that kind of thing.
It's very transparent with it, and it is sort of like a weirder cousin of, I would say, like the Outrun style stage select, which had a very similar like, here's the easy, here's the harder path. And here it's more explicit, and that allows them to just have this very strange, sort of map, which has its, I think, its own perks. Sort of like let's say, like I live in Virginia, so I'll go to DC. I'll go on the metro up there, and I'll find myself like, okay, there's certain like stations I'm used to going to a lot because I go to various offshoot stations of that a lot. And so you just get sort of the same dynamic here. There'll be sort of like choke point stages for a couple different routes. So you're like, oh, I'm used to doing this stage more and more. It's sort of like a nice little familiar touch. And now I'm going to diverge my path from the last time I went. I'm going to go down a slightly different route to a different ending, right? Which at the same time, it also makes it very hard to categorize what exactly the routes are, which ones you've already done. There's not like a very clear escalation that you can just sort of like look at. There's like, I think, a little bit of one, as you were saying, but it's not necessarily like set in stone or like easy to remember. But I think it is like a cute little touch, and something it's cool that they made that little jump for that reason. I did want to also briefly bring up, in sort of the same vein as the monkey ball stuff, I just thinking on between those two, sort of getting the hot pockets point earlier. I do sort of feel like with Monkey Ball there is the same dynamic of there's some sort of level of memo, but in that game it is constant analog input, right? So there's a much higher chance of variability, and so the improv gets to be I think a little more omnipresent. As comparison here, there's a much lower APM, so to speak. There's way fewer things you're doing, so it's much easier to sort of discreetly like plan out the route, which I think is somewhat in the game's detriment. But I think that also sort of segues into something interesting about the game, which is the score play, which allows you to take that sort of like very minute, like discrete routing to a new level. So Ryan, do you want to describe what does score play look like in this game? What is the way you go about it? How does like the trick shot system work?
Yes. So there's sort of three key components. Well, three within three, so to speak. Per stage, you're scored. Time and not dropping the ball are obvious. And then there's the trick smashes, where each one gives you a different amount of points. So that's sort of the moment to moment. But the real treat to it is at the end. I'm sure for most people, they'll finish a route and they'll get these three bonuses, and they all hit 0 because
Yeah. Yep.
You're still learning. Essentially, they are a perfect rally. Again, is very obvious. Never drop the ball. And then there's perfect trick. Clear every level with a trick smash. But then the real kicker is variety, which is to clear every level in your route with a different trick smash.
Yes.
It is a little lenient in the sense that like mirror inputs, say if you do the same like action off the wall, you can do it off both sides of the wall once and they count as separate. But even then, the implications of this are pretty involved, because there's always a question of when can I use a move that's slightly easier? Because especially once you start taking advantage of the wall and taking advantage of the crouch, the crouch one is particularly like I use that one right away, just because it's got so much recovery that if you don't clear the stage, you basically just drop the ball and runs essentially dead. But just in general, the more lucrative actions you can take are still controllable. You can control every shot with a different direction, but the angles like within that range become a little more constrained. I think the big one is like I think it's Cosmic Arrow. It's a wall one where you sort of like hit the ball by your hip. Those are very like clear, like they're going to hit out at like a disjoint. So you sort of have to plan like a block placement an appropriate like opposite side of the room. There's that sort of thing. Simple in concept, but I think you will find you have opportunities to both experiment placing different shots in different stages, and how to say this, sort of the thing we mentioned earlier with like these like gaps between blocks. The actual hitbox of the ball when you use a trick smash is like large enough, and you can sort of see this visually because the blocks you hit in this game are not total squares. The corners are slanted a little, and so if you have 4 blocks together, they sort of form a nice little gap. That gap, you can squeeze a ball in there and it will clear all 4 out, plus anything in the depth, very quickly. So especially as you start to pursue really good times, there's this really tangible like push and pull. Can I sneak this in? And nailing that is such a good feeling. There's one other thing, the curveball that we mentioned. So how you do this is as you like prep the smash that you're doing, you hold one direction and you instantly bank into the other, and you will curve the ball relative to that direction. Generally, the easiest one is horizontal, left to right, right to left. But you can do this with pretty much everything. You can do up, down, down, up. The diagonals are a little interesting. I accidentally explained this to Heather a little bit wrong. I said you can only do like diagonal and then the appropriate like horizontal direction. So like diagonal upright, then straight left. You can do like lower diagonal stuff. You just can't do the upper diagonal to upper diagonal, which is a little strange, but you'll get used to it. And just in general, again, similar like ethos at play here, where they're very valuable for the piercing, and these also don't cost time. But especially as you experiment with diagonal tricks or diagonal curves, the angles can become very unwieldy. Generally, again, like playing normally, dropping the ball is not a big deal, and in most cases you will recover the ball. But especially if you go for like up, like shots in the upper section of a room, you have to do a bit more work to save those. You might have to go for a jump, and the jump moves are a little longer to set up. You risk just like whiffing the ball entirely, especially with certain trick smashes where you like, depending on how close to the ground you do them, Mr. Cosmic Smash just like face plants. And there are times in practice where you fumble the input and the ball will suction towards you. It's one of the things we didn't mention. The nice like saving grace with all trick smashes is that the ball will like gravitate towards you a bit, so you don't have to be as precise timing the trick relative to where the ball is on screen. In most cases, you will just land the shot. But there are like these very specific funny edge cases where you mistime input and the ball will like suction towards you, and then you don't become actionable. The ball just like slowly, slower than it normally would, to add insult to injury, just like slowly glide past you, and there goes the run. But that's sort of the crux with it. Just turning the map into like this puzzle, route to route. Where can I fit the right trick in the right place? It should be noted, Hypa could not make it. He would have loved to, but unfortunately, his sleep schedule has bit him a little bit. He has a point in here for speed running. So obviously, the piercing benefit of trick smashes lends itself a lot to just being able to blitz through a lot of levels if you don't necessarily care for variety and all that. Score play is not necessarily the same even in the presence of a time bonus, because it is possible to go through the level slower with a more valuable trick smash, and that will still give you more points in the end as a net bonus.
Yes.
But yeah.
I will say, like, very broadly speaking, I think that, like, the way that the trick shot sort of like routing changes the way you view the game in the score play is, I think, solves a lot of, at least solves a major issue with the sort of like oh, I understand this level now, I just solved it issue, quote unquote, because it's sort of requiring you to memorize all these different permutations of a given level, which can be sometimes very hard to do in a game like this, is to make the player understand the level in like a multiplicity of ways. And it does just such an elegant job of it here, because if you want to sit and grind like the best score, you want to be distributing your trick shots throughout the stages, and that requires sitting down and doing that, like sort of like testing, right? Which, like, okay, where is exactly am I going to put this one? How many different ways can I solve this level? Since every level is extremely open in that way, even if it does look very simple and rote the first few times you do it. And I think just by adding that, and by having it vary between the different routes, like let's say, okay, I want to go to this particular ending, you might have a different trick shot that you want to do in a particular place, just because, oh, okay, it makes more sense here in this one as comparison to when I tried it in this other particular route for this particular ending, which is it's just very compelling. It's not something I'm particularly good at, for sure, and I have to spend a lot of time practicing those very tricky tricks, especially the ones where you're tapping the ceiling and that kind of thing, are very like not intuitive, and I get them very rarely. But it is such a cool way to add that sort of incentive, even if I don't think you don't really see a lot of score play for this game, just because we were sort of joking pre-podcast, but this score play is just not that popular anymore. It's all about the speed runs and the GDQ era. And this is definitely a game where I think that sort of view can be a little bit it can blink your experience, right? This is definitely one, by my estimation, that you want to take with that score routing concept in mind, even if you don't fully play into it. Just being able to be like, I did went survival mode this run. I slopped through it. I didn't really think about it, but I was seeing all the different places I could have layered a given trick shot or something, and that's somewhere I could be going in the future. I think that's an interesting element to the game. What do y'all think on that, Heather or Hot Pocket? If either of y'all have thoughts on that.
I think it's cool as fuck. But I'm just not. I haven't put the amount of time in it, and to be honest, I'm not sure if it's something I'm going to stick with that long term. But I do love that there is that sort of like you were saying, the open-endedness of each level, the fact that you have to consider the game as like one big piece is really special. It's fucking cool as shit.
Yeah, I think I'm just very, very willing to give to give a lot of grace to a game like this, where it's like, like even if you're trying to do the scoring on a super basic level, that's kind of where I was at before I put the game down. I was trying to like kind of get like get the number to go up a little bit. Uh, it's just that, it's a game that has fun handling, and like the scoring is enough to kind of make you consider it in a basic, like a little higher of a level, even if you're not, really trying to optimize it. That I think for something with like this, where it's just so easy to like pick it up and kind of engage with it, I'm inclined to be extremely lenient toward it.
So I'm curious, because I have my opinions on this. If there was a version of this game that was more, let's say, like console port friendly, right? Had a training mode and had mission mode. Maybe like had a couple different ways to perform progression. Do you think there's like a version of this game that would pull you in to actually do the extra work, or is it sort of like I prefer it in this very simplified form?
I mean, I just don't really see the point for something like this, I guess.
Yeah,
Like, the point for something like that would be to add different levels. And if you're doing that, that's sort of outside of the scope of the premise, almost, it feels like. Because it's like, I don't know, it's like you're a tennis player and you hit the ball. Like, there really isn't really that much to like, I mean, to shift around the structure. There's not really that much of a point to me. But
I wanted to ask, this reminds me, is there a way in this game to fucking like do a quick restart? Because I
Yeah,
had
so
oh my god.
it's
Go
the
ahead.
universal Dreamcast rule: all 4
Mhm.
face buttons and start will
Yeah.
soft reset your game.
Oh
And
my
this
god.
game has the fastest soft reset you will ever see in your life.
Oh my god.
You activate it, and then you just press start, and you will instantly start the run over again.
That's
Which
insane.
is sort of like the unintentional like band-aid solution to even just the lack of fucking level select. For everyone at home playing this game at home, it is literally just the game that you get on the disc, or your legally acquired copy. It You can customize the starting time and the time you get on level clear, and that's literally it. Apart from that, you just play the game. But it's also uh like last night I was sort of refreshing on some of the levels I hadn't played in a while, and it's like easy enough to just get to places, because pretty much everything you do that's not playing the game, you can skip through it. You can skip replays if you want. You can
Yep.
blitz through like the level transitions. Really fucking brisk game if you want it to
Yeah.
be. But
Yeah, I felt really stupid because I didn't realize that for the first few hours, that if you just press start, you skip through all the like score result screens and all that, and it just improves the pace of the game like so significantly.
I didn't know
It's
that for quite
awesome.
a while either. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I sort of like the like walking through the empty hallway with all the
Mhm.
lights above you. It's
I mean, I
but-
like it too, but it's like if you're grinding it, it gets annoying.
Yeah, 100% agree.
It'll be awkward for me. So I have a few quote unquote perfect runs under my belt, and those I normally blitz through. But I'll point to the current super play on YouTube that I would love to enter that ranking. I'll have to sit through that shit at some point because I'd love, there's something very cohesive about the way this game looks that when you watch it, you want it to be that seamless experience. Just the like transitory, strange, like room with the dotted lines. Hearing our favorite character ever, the announcer of Cosmic Smash.
Yes.
I love how he tells you on the before the goalie fight, he tells you to turn off your cell phone. That was
Ahead of its time.
crazy.
I think I first reviewed this game in what, like 2022, maybe, and I think back then and up to now, I'm still perplexed on like. I guess cell phones were a thing back then, but I just
Yeah.
that phrase seems so modern. And then
Yeah, it's
like I'm in
very
the theater.
bizarre.
Yeah, like it's very cool.
Did they not want people to in the arcade to like I don't know.
I mean, they were
I
saying
mean, it is
that in
it
movie
is
theaters
very hype.
for forever. I mean, not
Yeah.
forever, but you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So for reference, it's a secret like bonus stage you get if you finish a certain number of stages with trick smashes. It's just 2 blocks, but on the other side is also blue Mr. Cosmic Smash Man, who is a goalie, and you sort of bounce the ball back and forth between them, and it's very cute because you can go for like trick smashes and he just like sends them back at you at normal speed. So there's a little bit of finessing you have to do. It sort of is the one moment where it invokes the spirit of Virtua Tennis, even down to baiting rolls out, just like the first Power Smash. Go figure. Though something interesting, we sort of figured this out like today. These games do not actually have shared staff.
That's
They're
crazy.
basically their own separate things, which is very funny because the DNA is so obviously similar on a mechanical level.
It's a very
Yeah.
Sega thing. Like there's a weird amount of like I don't know why they did this, and I wish more developers would do this because it's so cool. Just having a development studio make a great game, and then your other internal development studios like, I think we could do better, and it'll be completely different. It's like, I mean, think about like Virtual Cop versus House of the Dead, because if you play like House of the Dead versus Ocean Hunter, same developer, very obviously the same like like idioms, right? Completely different from Virtual Cop and I guess in the same way that Virtual Cop and Confidential Mission are, you can tell like those have a very similar. But there's something about it, like they I guess it almost feels like internal competition, right? In the same way that and I think these two games had more overlap, but like Rez taking so many concepts from Panzer Dragoon for a completely different purpose. And this is sort of the Rez of Virtua Tennis.
I appreciate we've gone so long without mentioning it.
Yeah.
Definitely the most immediate, especially given the console area that they both inhabit. Very similar, like seamless presentation.
No,
And both are awesome.
I know this is sort of cutting the baby in half. Which would you prefer? Which you say you prefer, Ron? I know they're both favorites of yours.
And probably still is Rez. I think Rez as that sort of enveloping experience is just so poignant to me still, despite probably having played both of these games the same amount of times.
Yeah.
It's Sega. It's Dreamcast Sega, man. What can you say?
Exactly. Which I also sort of building on that. Where would I guess how many Dreamcast games would you even put above Cosmic Smash at all? Obviously, Rez. I know for me, and I know Crazy Taxi is like a lock for me. and Jet Set Radio as well. But I'm curious if you have
I
any
mean,
others.
JSR is like my number two.
Yeah.
I'm probably not going to count Virtual On for this comparison just because I'll lean that more towards like Naomi for that, not necessarily. I mean, that is a great port, but I'll be fair a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
It's hard. I feel like
it's
this
pretty
is,
much that. I
Yeah.
have Cosmic Smash very high up. I guess a true contender for GOAT is of course Seaman.
Oh, sorry, which one?
Seaman.
Oh yes, Seaman. Yeah. Oh, okay. Classic. I do think out of all of the random like, oh, they made this bonkers arcade game at the turn of the millennium, and then we got to enjoy a relatively, uncompromised version of it on Dreamcast. Like, I think this is like if I had to compare this to say like Outrigger, or I mean, especially something like Charge and Blast, or any one of the many just random arcade board. I mean, Dynamite Deca or Dynamite Cop 2 or whatever the name of that is over here. This is, I think, by far, like outside of the big names, probably my favorite from Sega in that time period.
It's very convenient because like this and Virtual is both as mentioned before, not actually analog, but
Yep.
playing it on the controller, like it almost feels like perfectly at home.
It does. I remember back when I first reviewed it, I had a whole bit about how good the analog control was, just completely oblivious. Like, which is funny because by that point I already played Virtua Tennis on stick. I have a Brooks adapter. There's no reason why I don't play this on stick, to be honest. But my stick has some weird snapback issues, which did not help with those curve shots, as you were mentioning. That's always been a little bit of a stifler for me. Before we get to sort of like, I guess, last remarks, I do want to briefly talk about I guess you would call it the sequel to this game. It came out so long after and has been sort of in the, I don't know how.
First,
Oh, go ahead.
can we build up to this for a little bit?
Yes.
So one of the cute things in this game, the original C Smash, when you finish a run and you get your ranking score, the game will display a set of numbers, and it used to be your password you would submit onto cosmicsmash.com. Obviously, at some point after release, the site went under. And it was a couple years ago where the site came back again, and it was like a countdown. I believe it had a game on it you could play, but it was ostensibly a countdown. And when it finally hit 0, it revealed
C Smash VRS, Sega's Icon reimagined, the ultimate VR arcade sports game. So this was I think there's been a quiet movement in the last I'd maybe you could even go as far to say 10 years or so of Western developers just sort of getting carte blanche to play with Sega properties. Some of these are very notable, obviously. Streets of Rage 4 is probably the one that pops into most people's heads. Because they've just been very permissive with the licenses. Like, yeah, just go make the game. We would love for people to make games based on these. So, it's sort of a strange like sort of start for the game. I don't think most of the dev team had like were very familiar with it. But the sort of director and producer on the game, Jörg Titles, I'm not quite sure to pronounce that, but he's a cool guy. Go follow him. He just absolutely adored this original Cosmic Smash. Managed to work with the team to make a new one, get the license from Sega, and put it out as a VR title. So with the VR focus, there are obviously some changes. There's a much more, I think, traditional aiming system. It's sort of much more, I think, explicitly timing based. Like, oh, you have to swing at the right time. So when they finally translated it over to the regular PS5 as a non-VR title, you can play it as normal Cosmic Smash. It does feel somewhat different. I went ahead and I played it some this weekend just to prep, because I have been curious about it for a while. It's I think it's really worth your time if you're interested in this kind of game, because it is also like I almost view it as more of a like almost like Lumen as a Rise or something, where it's very much leading into the aesthetic qualities. There's in the credit sequence of the original Cosmic Smash, these sort of like worker drone people like building the subway. Like you can sort of see them like in space, like constructing it. And they're all over this game. They're always doing some funny thing in the interstitials or working or there's a lot of focus on them. This it has more of a I think a traditional like puzzle game progression where you can sort of move through this big world and it's a giant world map. But in the basic mode, it's not really arcade style. It's just play each level as you come along. They do include an arcade mode. This is the one I played. I think probably the most controversial change for people in here is that they changed what we were previously calling extremely elegant, the trick shot eating away your time. They just replaced it with a meter, so it's a meter that you manage and you build
No.
up. Yeah, I know. It is a bit of a bummer, because playing through it, I got to the end first try, with I think over 60 seconds left on the clock. I had I think much more than that, but I know I had at least 60 seconds because it popped a trophy for me, and they must have not thought that was very hard to do because it's a bronze trophy to finish the game with over 60 seconds remaining. I think there are some interesting things about it. So that it's, I am not quite sure if there's the same. They did look to me like there's multiple different trick shots, but there's also multiple types of trick shots that as you progress through the game, you can sort of mold your trick shot and level it up, which gets into the routing. When you're playing the arcade mode, there's sort of a limited. There's 5 orbits, and each orbit has sort of 3 different valence bands around like a central planet. So you get to choose. It's not a pick three. I swear to God, it is not a pick three. Uh, there's just sort of like a scattering of levels, and so it's sort of interesting. You do your level routing beforehand, and just you sort of it goes around the menu and it lets you select like a route through a full orbit of the planet, and that means you can't actually hit all of the different levels. So if a level has a given upgrade, or if it has a score bonus you can tap into, or if it has additional time, it will tell you. Or there's plenty of levels that don't give you anything. So it just, I think, what sort of separates it out from that sort of pick three mentality. Because you can just like play through it raw, or if you're like, oh, I actually like this particular level better, or it's better for me to score on. You can choose the route in that way. It's not always like, okay, you're gonna level these up on a click, and like that kind of thing. Um, I do really I think like some of the timing stuff, because the game is built for 16:9, or I guess it was originally built for VR, but at least you just played in 16:9 in the third person mode. It's much wider, and it's pretty somewhat severe penalties for if you try to do those diving shots from across the map. You will lose a lot of velocity on your ball, which, even though the timer's not all that pressing, it does eat away quite a bit. If you get one of these slow loping balls because you were too far away. I feel like it is a little more timing focused, in terms of I definitely was beefing shots that the OG would just sort of let me get away with because it's so generous in its contextuality, and some of that is stripped away in VRS, which is very cool. It's rare that we see that in games. If I had to give a quick criticism, I do think the levels are, you don't really get that like monkey ball style cool idea on every level kind of thing going on. There's no glasses level, right? It's a lot of I would call the level design very pedestrian in a lot of ways and very utilitarian. It's like, okay, we're gonna set up this amount of blocks, and sometimes there's some cool ideas. I do like the warping blocks that will, when you hit them, send your block somewhere else in the stage. And there's some where you have like blocks that are actually right above you that obviously you can't hit because they're in the plane that you're hitting from, right? And so you sort of like are wanting to warp balls so they pop backwards into those panels that are above you. That was, I think, the coolest idea I came across. But otherwise, still a very solid C Smash concept. And the reason I compared it to Luminous Rise is it has a this great soundtrack from I'm pulling up the names. I think Ken Ishii, yeah, who had worked on Rez, if I recall, and oddly enough, Uncle, for people who are like DJ Shadow fans, that group that he was a part of has like a rotating musicianship. There's a mode where it's just like a Uncle playlist, and you just endlessly play along to the Uncle playlist. Is very like vibes based. It is very sweet and very reminiscent of that sort of like lust for immersion and involvement in life that I think like the new a lot of the newer Luminouses are very like excellent at portraying. So I just want to give a quick shout out to that game. Definitely worth a purchase, even though it's I think only on PS5.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a Wikipedia. Others such as the gamer critiqued its overly precise controls. That's the kind of thing you want to see in a reception section. It's like precise controls. I'm there. So anyway, I just want to take that tangent. But any final sort of thoughts on this very unique Dreamcast game from any of y'all?
I'll let these two go first if they have anything, and then I'll close out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love Cosmic Smash. We love Cosmic Smash.
We love Cosmic Smash.
The end credits is really funny.
Yeah.
Working to the almond break, as one does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my final thought.
Yeah, I guess the last key thing I'll end this on is just even like beyond the scope of the game, there's something about the look of it that is like very, very striking. We mentioned at the very start, this is a very strange like Dreamcast release in its time that came in a DVD case,
Yeah.
and the front cover is like Cosmic Smash striking a pose, and then it's translucent, so you can see the back of the manual, which is like the rear view perspective of the same pose, so it's like a mirror.
Yeah.
That shit is sick.
So sick.
But even just like one of the things that's really stuck with me pursuing like mastery of this game is there's something very cathartic. You can sit back and watch what the run is leading up to. Obviously, per stage you get your replay, but if you successfully get like a variety bonus ending, all of your replays get played in the credits, and the
Yes.
song is expanded to
Yep.
account for this. It shows you all your times and everything. But the thing that I fucking love, the attract mode in this game, one, no matter what, a lot of the time when the ball is hit by the racket, it's like in sync with the
Yes.
there's like a percussive like little a boop in the song, and it just is always set to that. But more importantly, in the attract mode, it's like a highlight reel trick shots, and it saves like replays that have been in effect as long as the game has been played. Sadly, I wish the one thing I can take a port that is just the game. I wish they saved that like somewhere on VMU to watch all your replays in the attract mode. But even if not, you get to do your run, you get to watch everything back, and it's like very cathartic just because this game has like a really good sense of just like timing things in a very immaculate way. And yeah, great game.
This is
one of
really-
those like very special. This is one of those like cohesive games to me, and I really fucking value that a lot.
This is really the game that deserves the shot triggers treatment. The shot rackets, M2 shot rackets.
Oh, absolutely. Fuck yeah.
We need all the arcade racket sports games with the same amount of love and dedication as the shmups. One final note before we sign off. You can play as other characters, right? There's cheat codes for like.
Oh
a
yes,
bear.
very
Yeah.
very strange. Some of the button combos you have to press are made with no rhyme or reason, but there's some cute ones you can play as like yellow dude. You can play as one of the workers. The most notable one is you can play as a bear who uses a fish instead of a racket, and he's
Yeah.
sort of
That's the
textured like it.
thing.
His fur is like not fur and all, and it's sort of textured like literal poop, but it looks fucking funny. It's it's so awesome.
That's awesome.
Oh, what a good game. Anyway, I hope if you're listening to this and you haven't tried this game, just go boot up Flycast. I hear there's actually integer scaling in Flycast now, officially released.
I wonder who
Yeah.
caused that.
I wonder who got annoyed enough at Flycast that they had to implement that. But definitely go give it a shot. If you play Cosmic Smash and you want to try VRS New Dimensions, definitely worth that as well. And we're hoping to come at you with a lot of new episodes. Unfortunately, not all Dreamcast episodes, but we will have a lot more of these smaller scale episodes for you in the future. So, bye bye. Thanks for listening.
See you.
Bye.
But